in our larger Dvar Torah in the book of Bilaam, there was one opinion, the opinion of the Pri Tzaddik, which seemed to be hinting to some really deep ideas with the Shaar Nun. And since we have our normal Shaar Nun series, I thought that I would just isolate it out now in a separate recording, just because of the Shaar Nun connection in the Pri Tzaddik. So this is the Pri Tzaddik based off of his commentary on both on Parashat Yitro, our Parashat Balak, and in Parashat Matot, where he basically says that the Pesukim, the verses of Bilaam, that Bilaam, based on Arizal, was able to try to get up to the level of the Poshei Israel, that he had prayed to Hashem, let my demise, let my end be like the Mesharim, like the Jewish people, and particularly his level was that of the Poshei Israel. And the Pri Tzaddik writes that every Jew has their letter in the Torah. You have your shorish in one of the letters of the Torah. Where's your root? So he says we have the Poshei Israel, the sinners of the Jewish people. Where do they find their root in the Torah? So their root in the Torah is in these Pesukim of Bilaam, in the prophecy of Bilaam, because Bilaam himself, he's the prophet of the Tumah, the prophet of the non-Jews, but he also somehow has a connection to the point of the Poshei Israel, so that their shorish, their letters, comes in his actual prophecy. And the Pri Tzaddik writes at length that where did the level of Bilaam come from? When we were basing ourselves off of Gemara in Bava Batra, Daf Yud Daled Amud Bet, that says that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote Sifro, Parashat Bilaam, and Sefer Iyov. That Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah and Parashat Bilaam. Why is there a difference between the Torah and Parashat Bilaam? Isn't Parashat Bilaam part of the Torah? Didn't Moshe write the whole Torah? So the Pri Tzaddik is of the opinion that yes, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the whole Torah, but Parashat Bilaam, that comes from a higher level. That comes from more of a Torah Hashem, of a dvar Hashem, that Hashem put the Shechina Begrono, that Hashem put the holy presence, the holy prophecy in the throat of Bilaam, which makes it come from a higher level. And it says that higher level, based on the Zohar, we know it based off the Pirkei Avot, that the Pia Aton, the mouth of the Aton, Bilaam's donkey that miraculously gave him Tochacha, attempted to set him on the right path. He says the Pia Aton, Ishtoke Gufo, the Pia Aton is really the source of Bilaam's prophecy, that just like the Aton, the Tameh, is the one that's able to bring forth these miraculous words of Hashem, so too the Tameh Bilaam can bring forth these miraculous words. And that was all created Bein Hashmashot. That was all created based on Pirkei Avot, based on the Zohar. This is one of the special things that are part Kodesh, part Hol, the miraculous Bein Hashmashot, Erev Shabbat, that point between Friday and Shabbat, whatever was created at that moment has special super Kedusha. That's the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the Dibur of Hashem. So the Dibur of Hashem created the Piaton, which then creates, which is really a symbol for Bilam's prophecy itself. So Bilam's prophecy on the one hand is for the Poshei Israel, it's from the Tumah. On the other hand, it comes from the Bein Hashmashot, Erev Shabbat of creation, which means that it has itself a much higher level of Kedusha. So he says, and this is why Moshe Rabbeinu can't really connect to the level, because he wasn't the level of the Poshim. Moshe Rabbeinu is not the level of a sinner. I think what he's trying to say, and we see this in another Pri Tzaddik in Yitro, that the Shaar Nun, the 50th gate of wisdom, that level that Moshe Rabbeinu never gets to, he only stays at the 49, the level of the 50 is the level of the Baal Tshuva. It's the level of that the Pushim can get to the Koach of Tshuva. Moshe Rabbeinu has no shayachut to this. Moshe Rabbeinu has no, he's only up to the level of the 49. Therefore, the Gemara is telling us Moshe Rabbeinu wrote his Torah Moshe, which is the rest of the Torah, plus Parshat Bilaam. But Parshat Bilaam, that's a hint to the Shaar Nun that Moshe Rabbeinu can't write, because his Shorsh Neshama doesn't come from there, because he's a Tzaddik Gamor. He's not in the place of the Baal Tshuva, that the Makom of the Baal Tshuva, where he stands, the Tzaddik Gamor can't go to, because that's the level of the Shaar Nun. So Dafka, it's in the Tum'ah of Bilaam, the Tum'ah in his Pesukim, and where his source. But ultimately that source is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu also. Ultimately that source is so awesome, which there's even a Chazal that says that they had wanted originally to put the section of Balak and Bilaam, this whole story right next to the Shema, because this is related. It says the Pri Tzaddik in his Risi say Laila to the every Jew, even the sinners, is close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But now we're saying even more through the Koch of Teshuvah that can actually elevate ourselves up to the level of the Shaar Nun, and therefore what is part of the Shaar Nun in our Torah? The Parshat Bilaam, which Moshe Rabbeinu only has the ability to write down, to copy over, but doesn't tap into it in its fullest. That's a separate category, because that's the category of the Tumah that becomes the Tahora, as we saw in the Shlach Kadosh, that the prosecutor is becoming the defense attorney. That turning over the Nafochu of the Klala to the Bracha is one of the deeper Sodot of the Shaar Nun. Shabbat Shalom.